few different pianos here. We have the Kawai ES-110 on top, compared with the Casio Privia PX-5S and the Roland MIDI controller keyboard, the A-88. And Kawai is the only one with the speakers and has, I think it was 19 sounds. And then Casio has the most sounds and zones, but doesn't have any speakers. But it's the most editable, the deepest keyboard, you might say. And the MIDI controller, the Roland A-88, is simply that. Just a keyboard controller, doesn't have any speakers or doesn't make any sounds on its own. So, which one is the best? I don't possibly have room for 3 88 key digital pianos. So 2 of these will have to go, and I must decide on which one I keep. And it's hard to say. I suppose I would go with the Kawai ES-110. I'm coming from the perspective of all of these 3 keyboards are MIDI controllers for my Korg Kronos. I used to have the 88 key Korg Kronos, the big flagship battleship, the one that weighs 100 pounds. But I traded it in for a 61 key version, so it's much lighter. But that means I need a piano controller for the Kronos, and a popular combination is the Casio Privia. But now that the Kawai has come along, for a couple $100 cheaper, it makes the Kawai maybe the best choice, simply because it has the built-in speakers, it's as light as the Casio, has the full 88 keys, the new action feels good, and it has the 5-pin MIDI in and out on the back. So while it doesn't have as many zones or split capability, the way I use it, that's not too much of an issue. So the Casio is the one I find most difficult to play because of the key travel and the force it takes to press the keys down, and I just find it frustrating to play because I can't get around on it as fast as I like. But maybe it's the right key action for you. I find out that I did like the Korg Kronos the best, and if I had to do it over again, I would have kept it and not have chanced any other keyboard, because when you find the action that's best for you, you don't want to part with it until you have a replacement that's just as good or better for you. Because if you can't play like you want to, then it's all worthless. Doesn't matter how good the sound is or anything. The action is everything. So I do like the Kawai action the best. And it's hard to find fault with it, really. Even though it has the speakers, it's maybe the lightest keyboard of the 3, by a hair, under the Casio. I think they're about the same, though. They're about the same width as well, and about the same height. The Kawai actually rises a bit higher with this curved part above the keys. The Roland, the problem is it's the longest one, and if you're working out of a narrow room, there's all this added length to it because of the modulation joystick wheel and the buttons and the D-beam over on the side. So just those few extra inches on the end of this board could make all the difference between fitting it into the back of your car or fit it into your tiny cubicle studio. So it's also the heaviest which you can carry around, but ooh, it's quite a strain. If your top priority is mobility, then go with the Casio or the Kawai, because what did you sell the Kronos 88 for, to drop all that weight if you just get a big heavy controller like this again? There are heavier ones like the Kawai VPC, I think it is, the piano controller, that has probably better action than any of these three, but is tons more heavy. But of course, that's out of the price range. The Casio and the Roland at the making of this video, they go for $999 new, and I think the Kawai is $729. And you know, if your budget is $100, I mean, if it's $1,000, you can. From my perspective, all I need is an 88 keyboard controller that has the MIDI in and MIDI out with the 5 pins. The Kawai is the clear winner in that, and I like the action better. It's more glossy though. The tops of the keys, they're more slippery. Anyone who's ever played the Casio Privia PX-5S will know that it's got this kind of simulated grain wood texture on the top of the keys, which actually does help the fingers not slip around as you're playing. And I didn't think that actually finger slipping would be an issue, but now all of a sudden when I play the Kawai, I'm slipping everywhere. What is this? The 88 is actually very similar to the Casio. They're both textured. I think the 88 is slightly more slippery, but it's still got that Casio-like texture on the top of the keys. The Casio keys and the Roland keys also feel like they've got a lot of meat to them. They're heavy. They're solid. The Kawai keys, to save on weight, I guess, they feel more tinny. They feel lighter and more hollow. And it's like you're playing on seashells. No, it's not that brittle at all. It's quite acceptable and probably won't bother you, but that's something I did notice, and which I do appreciate, because whatever it takes to save weight is the way to go these days. The key travel is almost the same between the Kawai and the Casio. The press down almost the same. I think the Casio still has a tiny bit more key travel to it, which for me, it's too much. It makes it more difficult to press down and come all the way back up and press down again. Not that my hands are the weakest hands ever, or wrists, but I don't know, just the tiny minuscule differences between the resistance of the key, how fast it pops back up, what the distances the key travels down. It makes the difference between, a successful trill or a grand recital that went awesome or was a debacle. The key travel on the 88 is very shallow, more so than the Kawai and the Casio by far. And I heard people say it's sluggish, and it certainly is. But the more you play with this one in particular, the easier it is to adapt to it, I find. And I really like the flexibility of the key velocity. You can trigger the really mellow samples very easily, and if you really lay into it, you can get the very loud samples as well. And whereas like the Casio, it's either too light or too heavy. It's hard for me to find kind of a middle ground, because it has the light, normal, and heavy settings for like the hammer key action. And I go with the light, usually. I think I have it on medium right now. But I have these all plugged into a MIDI merger to trigger sounds from the Kawai. So all of these keyboards are running through into the Kawai so that we can hear all of them. But we're actually just hearing the Kawai. These guys are just acting as keyboard controllers to trigger sounds from the Kawai. The 88, you can power it via USB. If you had a Korg Kronos, something that takes MIDI controllers via USB, you could just plug this in and it powers it. Because even though it's heavy and it's got the 88 keys, it's full length, full size, it's actually just two little tiny, they're not so small, but 2 or 3 chips inside the left side of it, and it doesn't take much power at all. It's the only one that can go bus powered, I guess. The Kawai doesn't even have any USB capability. I wonder if the Casio can. It runs on batteries, so maybe it can. It certainly has the most controllers, the Casio, because you've got the 6 faders, the mod wheel, and the mod, and the pitch bend. But it's hard to say. I like things about the Casio and the 88. So it'll be hard to part with them, but gonna need to eventually. So I think the Kawai delivered. I think it deserves the praise it's getting. I think it's all what it's cracked up to be. There's a few weird things, like there's uneven spacing between a few of the keys, like larger gaps between some keys than others, and they seem to wiggle to the side slightly. Some keys apparently more than others, but keys have been doing that for millennia. Just feels like the Casio and the Roland have sturdier, thicker keys, more rounded out, filled in, like they're actually solid inside. It feels like on all of these keyboards, there's a key within the key, and when you press it down, it shoots a hammer downwards, and if you hold the top of the key downwards, that hammer comes back up and hits the top of the key again. Like, it's very responsive. Like, it comes back up right away. The Casio is more invisible. There's a lot less give. It stays with the key better. The Roland is bizarre. It takes so long for the key to come back up, even though the key travel isn't that far. You can really bounce the hammer downwards, and it has a lot of play. Weird like that. I don't know. I can't explain it. Darn it. I wish I could keep all three. You know, I could. Because the Kronos has the combination mode. You can have 16 instruments going at the same time. And we just put this one in MIDI channel 16, and this one 15, this one 14. And give this the piano, and give this the electric piano, and put this strings or whatever. And yeah, we could connect 15 MIDI controllers to the Kronos and never have to touch any controls on the Kronos, because we have all the sounds divvied out to other keyboards. The problem is space, room. The repetition, though, is still pretty good. I can't get it going on the Casio. Anyway, that's all for today.